Hello. You ever see a house of cards collapse? It's fascinating how one little breeze can bring the whole damn thing down. That's what my marriage was, except I didn't know I was the one sitting inside, while she was busy stacking her cards elsewhere. But don't worry, I made sure she got a picture-perfect memory of what she destroyed. I used to think I had the American dream locked down. My name's Daniel, 38, and I had the house, the 2 kids, the golden retriever, and of course, my beautiful wife, Madison. If someone had taken a picture of our lives, it would have looked like a stock photo titled Happiness. For years, I worked my ass off to make sure we had everything we needed. The long hours at the firm, the extra shifts, the just one more project mindset. I did it all so my wife could focus on raising the kids and making our home the kind of place people envied. And Madison? She played her part well. She was the PDA mom with the Pinterest-perfect birthday parties, the woman who always made me feel like I was the luckiest guy in the world. Then came the cracks. It started small, like the way she began carrying her phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. The way she'd say she was going out with friends, but would come back smelling like a cologne I didn't own. The way she suddenly started caring about how she looked before leaving the house, but not when she was home with me. I told myself I was paranoid, that I was overthinking. But gut feelings? They don't lie. One night, after she fell asleep, I finally gave in to the nagging suspicion eating at me. I checked her phone. Madison wasn't the best at covering her tracks, just good enough to think I wouldn't look. And there it was, in a hidden album on her phone. Pictures of her and some other guy, tangled up like a couple of teenagers in the back seat of a car. His name was Eric. He was younger, worked in finance, and, from what I could tell, he was her little secret while I was busy breaking my back for our perfect life. Most guys might have gone straight to anger, to yelling, to throwing her crap out on the lawn. But me? I had a different idea. See, Madison had been planning something special, our annual family photo shoot. She had spent weeks obsessing over it. Matching outfits, professional photographer, the works. She wanted it to be perfect. So, I decided I'd make sure she got exactly what she asked for. A perfect family portrait. You ever notice how people act when they think they're untouchable? They get sloppy, overconfident. They start believing their own lies so much that they forget the truth is just one wrong step away from exposing them. Madison was exactly like that. After I found the pictures on her phone, I didn't say a word. That's the trick, really. The second you let on that they go into damage control mode, crying, gaslighting, making promises they have no intention of keeping. I didn't want apologies. I wanted clarity. So I watched. And damn, did I see things I wish I hadn't. She'd text him from across the dinner table, pretending to check school emails. She'd leave the house in leggings and a hoodie, only to come back in a different outfit, acting like I was too dumb to notice. On the nights she stayed home, I'd see her scrolling through old messages, smiling to herself, like our life was just a commercial break between episodes of her secret romance. She still kissed me before bed, still called me babe, still talked about our future. And that's when I knew she wasn't sorry. She wasn't wrestling with guilt, losing sleep over what she'd done. No, she thought she was winning. But she had no idea what game I was playing. See, Madison had spent the past month planning our annual family photo shoot. It was her thing, her grand tradition. She wanted to post the pictures everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, the yearly Christmas card. She had color-coordinated outfits for the kids, a Pinterest board full of pose ideas, and a photographer she had handpicked months in advance. This year, she had told me with that perfect wife smile, I want to do something different, something special. Oh, don't worry, sweetheart. It'll be special, all right. I played along. I acted just as excited as I always was, asking about locations, helping her pick the outfits, nodding along as she showed me inspiration shots of other happy couples. All the while, I was preparing something she'd never forget. But timing is everything. If I moved too soon, she'd find a way to twist the narrative, make me the villain, play the poor confused wife just looking for love. No, I needed her to feel secure. I needed her to think she had everything under control. So, I kept smiling, kept kissing her goodnight, kept letting her think she was the mastermind in this little story. All the while, I was setting the stage for my masterpiece. The perfect family portrait was coming. She just didn't know what would be in the frame. The thing about revenge is, you have to let it simmer. Too hot, too fast, and you lose control. Too cold, and it doesn't hit where it needs to. I wanted mine served just right. a dish plated with precision. So, I planned. And while I planned, I watched. Madison was on a high. She was practically glowing in those weeks leading up to the photo shoot, and not because of me. It was the glow of a woman who thought she was getting away with it. I could see it in the way she carried herself, like she had a secret that made her special. That's the funny thing about cheaters. They don't just love the affair, they love the thrill of it. The sneaking, the stolen moments, the feeling of being desirable in a way that marriage, in their eyes, could never match. And yet, she still played house with me, still texted me during the day with little messages about the kids, still tagged me in Facebook posts with captions like, "My rock, my best friend." Oh, the irony. I bet her lover, Eric, thought he was winning too. I had looked him up, of course. He was exactly what you'd expect from a cliché, young, fit, full of himself. A finance bro with a wardrobe full of overpriced button-downs and a gym routine that probably took more commitment than his last 3 relationships combined. But I wasn't worried about Eric. Eric was predictable. Madison was the one who needed the stage set perfectly. And she was practically building the set for me. The family photo shoot was Madison's crown jewel every year. It had to be perfect. She had everything scheduled down to the last detail. Golden hour lighting? Check. Cozy, rustic background with autumn leaves? Check. Matching outfits in soft, neutral tones so she could post a carefully curated slideshow that screamed effortlessly elegant mother of 2? Double check. And me? I was the supportive husband, the willing participant. I agreed to it all, nodded when she fussed over the kids' outfits, let her take charge of every little detail. I even threw in some helpful suggestions to make her feel like she was leading the project. But behind the scenes, I had my own set of plans. The photographer, a woman named Lisa, was a longtime friend of Madison's. She had been taking our photos for years. I reached out to Lisa a week before the shoot with a simple request: bring an extra SD card, and trust me. She was confused but agreed. Then came step 2. I needed a moment alone before the shoot, a reason to excuse myself just long enough to make a small, but important, adjustment. Madison, of course, was already stressing over last-minute details, running around the house like a project manager in the middle of a PR disaster. So when I told her I needed to go grab coffee for everyone, she barely even looked up. "Oh, perfect. Can you get me the vanilla oat latte?" she called from the bathroom, straightening her hair. I smiled. Of course. I didn't go to the coffee shop. Instead, I went to Lisa's studio. I handed her the extra SD card I had prepared, and she raised an eyebrow. "Just trust me," I said. "You'll know when to use it." She hesitated but nodded. Lisa was a professional, and more importantly, she was a neutral party. That's exactly what I needed. Now, for step 3, the masterpiece itself. See, I didn't just want Madison to know she was caught. That was too simple, too small. I wanted her to feel it, to experience that split-second realization when everything in her carefully built world unraveled. Because that's the moment people remember. Not the confrontation, not the aftermath, but the drop. The instant where the ground disappears beneath them, and they understand that they are trapped. And so, I had spent the past 2 weeks creating something special. A photo, carefully crafted. The kind that could pass as part of our normal family collection at a glance, until you really looked at it. Madison loved subtlety, after all. She loved hints, whispers, things that felt secretive. I wanted her own little games turned against her. So, I put my Photoshop skills to use. In our family portrait, there we were, me, Madison, the kids, all smiling perfectly. But in the reflection of the decorative mirror in the background, a faint, shadowed image. Eric. Just enough to be noticeable. Just enough to be wrong. I saved it. Put it on a USB drive. Slipped it into my pocket. By the time I got home, coffee in hand, Madison was still in the mirror, fixing her earrings, humming to herself. She smiled when she saw me, completely oblivious. "Everything ready?" I asked. She beamed. "It's going to be perfect." Oh, it definitely was. Revenge is an art. Some people settle for the quick and easy, a screaming match, tossing clothes on the lawn, a dramatic exit. But that's not my style. No, I wanted something memorable, something that would stick with Madison long after the moment had passed. And this photo shoot? This was my canvas. The day arrived with that perfect autumn crispness Madison had been praying for. She was in peak photoshoot mode, flitting around like a movie director on set. The kids were dressed, the location was beautiful, and Lisa, the photographer, was already setting up. I played my part, smiling when needed, nodding at her instructions, pretending to care about the angles and lighting. It was almost amusing how easy it was to fool her. How she still saw me as the reliable, predictable husband she could manipulate. She had no idea that this entire day had been designed for her downfall. Lisa started with the usual poses, family shots, individual pictures with the kids, the standard loving husband and wife close-up. I held Madison the way I always had, arm wrapped around her waist, the picture of a devoted man. Then, as we reached the final shots, I gave Lisa the signal. She switched the SD card. Now, remember that special image I had prepared? The one with Eric's reflection hidden in the mirror? It was time to introduce that masterpiece to its audience. Lisa, playing her role to perfection, casually suggested we do a real-time preview of the photos. It'll help us adjust any last-minute details, she said sweetly. Madison, always eager to micromanage the aesthetic, agreed instantly. Lisa connected her camera to a tablet, bringing up the shots on a large screen. One by one, the pictures appeared. They were stunning. Warm, golden lighting, soft smiles, a picture-perfect family. And then, there it was, the modified portrait. At first, Madison didn't react. She was still in her perfect mom mode, nodding approvingly. But I watched as her eyes lingered on the screen just a little too long. The subtle creases in her forehead, the faint twitch of her lips, oh, she saw it. She just couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her gaze snapped to me, searching, confused. I raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. What's wrong? Lisa asked, playing her part beautifully. Madison swallowed, forcing a smile. Can we zoom in on that one? Lisa obliged. The screen magnified. There, in the reflection of the decorative mirror, was him. A shadowed figure, unmistakable. Just blurred enough to make it seem accidental, but still visible enough to be damning. Madison's entire body tensed. I could practically hear the gears grinding in her head, desperately trying to explain away what she was seeing. Her face paled, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. She turned to me, her voice barely steady. Did I what? I asked, tilting my head slightly, my expression unreadable. She stared at me, her lips parting, but no words came out. She couldn't say it. She couldn't accuse me, because that would mean acknowledging what she had done. And that was the beauty of it. Lisa, ever the professional, cleared her throat. Oh, weird. That must be a lighting trick or something. Do you guys want me to edit it out? Madison was frozen. I smiled. No need. I think it's perfect as it is. Her eyes widened just a fraction, and that's when I pulled out the real showstopper. From my pocket, I retrieved the USB drive. Speaking of pictures, I said, my voice calm, measured, but carrying weight, I have a little gift for you, sweetheart. Madison's breath hitched. I handed it to Lisa. Would you mind pulling this up? Lisa hesitated. She wasn't in on this part, but curiosity got the better of her. She plugged it in, and the screen changed. Not to our family photos, but to her photos. Every single picture I had found on her phone. Her and Eric, in hotel rooms, in his car, laughing, touching, wrapped up in each other. Dates and timestamps clear as day. Silence. The kind of silence that crushes. The kind that suffocates. Lisa gasped. The kids, too young to understand, just looked around in confusion. But Madison? She looked like a woman who had been hit by a train. Her breath came in short, shallow bursts. Her fingers trembled, eyes darting wildly, scanning the crowd like a trapped animal searching for an escape. But there was none. No lies could fix this. No excuses could smooth it over. Because the evidence was right there, playing on a screen as big as her betrayal. And just when I thought the moment couldn't get any better, my phone buzzed. I pulled it out, held it up so everyone could see, and read the message out loud. Transaction complete. Your house is officially off the market. Sale finalized. Congrats. I turned back to Madison, who was now visibly shaking. Oh, I said casually. Forgot to mention, I sold the house. Her eyes snapped to mine, horror written across her face. You what? I smiled. You didn't actually think I'd let you keep it, did you? And with that, I turned to the kids, crouching down to their level. Hey, buddy, I said to my son. Remember how we talked about moving to a fun new place? His face lit up. Yeah. I ruffled his hair. Well, guess what? It's happening. And guess who's not coming with us? Madison let out a strangled noise, part sob, part disbelief. But I wasn't done yet. I pulled one last envelope from my pocket and placed it gently on the table in front of her. Divorce papers. Already signed. Pre-negotiated. Ironclad. Her name was the only blank space left. And as she stood there, drowning in the wreckage of her own making. I stepped back, inhaling deeply, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Because for the first time in a long, long time, I was finally free. If you've ever watched a building collapse, you know there's a split second where everything seems to hold, like it's refusing to go down. Then, the weight becomes too much, and it crumbles all at once. That's exactly what happened to Madison in the moment she realized her entire life had just been pulled out from under her. She didn't speak at first, just stood there, frozen, as the weight of the photos, the house sale, the divorce papers, and the public exposure pressed down on her like an avalanche. Then came the shaking hands. Then the rapid blinking, like she was trying to wake up from a nightmare she'd walked into with her own 2 feet. And then as she snapped, her voice came out high at first, desperate and shaky. "You can't be serious." She grabbed the papers, flipping through them like they'd changed the more she looked. As if the numbers, the agreements, the solid legal proof of my preparation would magically disappear if she just refused to acknowledge them. Then, the tears. Not the kind that come from real pain. No, I knew Madison too well for that. These were the kind designed for damage control. The kind meant to look like sorrow, but were actually panic. She looked at Lisa, at the kids, at the trees, like she was searching for someone to save her. Then, finally, her eyes locked onto me. "What is this?" she choked out, holding up the papers like I'd just handed her a prison sentence. Which, in a way, I had. I tilted my head. "Divorce papers," I said. "Pretty standard in cases of extensive infidelity." I gestured toward the giant screen where her own actions were still displayed for everyone to see. She let out a laugh, not a real one, more of a frantic, hysterical burst of disbelief. "You're insane," she spat. This is insane." She took a step forward, and for a moment, I thought she might actually try to shove me. But she stopped herself. Instead, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You're ruining everything," she hissed. I blinked. "I'm ruining everything?" That was it. That was the moment my patience ran out. I stepped closer, voice dropping just enough that she had to listen. "Madison, I have spent years making sure you and this family had everything you needed. I worked long hours. I trusted you. I loved you. And you? You threw it away for some finance bro who doesn't even have the decency to show up when things hit the fan." Her face twitched at that. Oh yeah, Eric was not here. He had been good enough for stolen nights, secret texts, and whispered meetings, but now, the moment she needed him, he was gone. I let the silence sink in before I continued, my tone sharpening like a blade. "You want to talk about ruining everything? You did that the moment you decided that your fun was worth more than your marriage, your family, and your own dignity." She shook her head rapidly, face red, voice cracking. No, you don't get to twist this around. She gestured wildly at the screen. "You set me up. You manipulated this whole thing. You wanted to humiliate me." I exhaled sharply, nodding. "Yeah, I admit it. I did." Her mouth snapped shut. She hadn't expected me to own it. "Because, Madison," I continued, voice even, "I knew you wouldn't stop lying. If I confronted you the normal way, you'd have twisted it. You'd have cried, begged, made excuses, and somehow, someway, you'd have found a way to make me the bad guy. So yeah, I made sure there was no way out." Her breathing was ragged now, hands trembling, but she still wasn't done. You can't just take everything away from me," she stammered. "The house? The kids? You can't do that." I shrugged. "I didn't. You did. The moment you chose someone else over your family, you made that decision for yourself." Then, with a coolness I didn't even know I had in me, I added, "Besides, I made sure you'll be taken care of. Your half of the money from the house sale is in the account, lawyer approved. You'll be fine. Just not here." The realization hit her then. This wasn't just a scare tactic. This was final. No begging, no second chances, no drawn-out drama where she could try to manipulate her way back in. She had lost. Completely. And she couldn't handle it. She let out a sharp, almost feral sound, turning toward Lisa like she was suddenly the enemy. "And you helped him with this? What kind of person does that? How could you?" Lisa took a step back, hands raised. "I take photos," she said flatly. "That's literally all I did." Madison's chest was rising and falling like she'd just run a marathon. Then, out of nowhere, she let out a laugh, cold, bitter, venomous. "Fine," she hissed. "You want me gone? I'll leave. But don't think for a second this is the end. You'll regret this. You'll miss me." I smiled. "I don't think I will." And with that, I turned my back on her, walking toward the car where my kids were waiting, toward my actual future. She screamed something after me, but I didn't hear it. Didn't need to. Because for the first time in years, I didn't care what Madison had to say. Madison always had a way of making an exit. Dramatic, loud, messy. This time was no different. As I walked away, she stood there, shaking, her entire world reduced to ashes in a matter of minutes. She had always been the one in control, the one who dictated the rules of the game. But now, she wasn't just losing, she had already lost. And she couldn't handle it. Her voice rose behind me, shrill and desperate, clawing at any last bit of dignity she could grasp. You think you're so smart? You think this makes you the winner? She laughed, but it wasn't amusement. It was frustration, pure and raw. You're pathetic. You planned all this just to get back at me? You really think you're better than me? I didn't stop. Didn't turn. She wasn't worth my time anymore. But Madison? She wasn't done. Fine, she spat. You want to act like I'm the bad guy? Go ahead. But let's see how long you last without me. Her voice wavered, but she pushed forward, grasping at anything to regain ground. Let's see how long you can handle being a single dad. How long before you come crawling back, begging me to fix what you ruined. Now that made me pause. I turned, slowly, and met her gaze. Her makeup was smeared. Her hair was falling out of its carefully planned style. And for the first time in her entire life, she looked small. Not the untouchable Madison who always had an answer, always had a way out. Just a woman who had gambled and lost. And that's when I realized something. She wasn't angry that I had exposed her. She wasn't even angry that I was leaving her. She was angry because she had never considered that I would. Madison had built her entire life around the belief that no matter what she did, I would always be there. That she could push boundaries, break vows, lie straight to my face, and I would still be waiting, still be hers. And now? Now she was standing in the wreckage of her own choices, watching me walk away, and she had nothing left to hold on to. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. You still don't get it, do you? My voice was calm, steady. I'm not coming back. Not now. Not ever. Something flickered in her eyes, something dark and desperate, and I knew. She still thought she could win. And that's when I knew exactly how to end this. I pulled out my phone, tapped a few buttons, and then turned the screen toward her. A live feed popped up, showing the moving truck already in front of our house. Men carrying out boxes, furniture, everything. Her jaw dropped. I gave you the courtesy of breaking the news to you in private, I said, my voice light, but edged with finality. Now let's see how you like surprises. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. For once in her life, Madison had nothing to say. I turned back toward the car, the kids still inside, blissfully unaware of the storm their mother had created. They deserved better than this. Better than her. Madison could scream. She could cry. She could play the victim all she wanted. But at the end of the day, I was done playing her game. And as I drove away, leaving her behind, I finally felt something I hadn't felt in years. Bye-bye.